Hey guys, this is Jacinda Shed, and about 4 years ago, Danny and I had posted some videos about a botched real estate transaction with Federal National Mortgage Association. So you can go back and review those videos to find out what we knew back then and what we thought had taken place back then. I'm not going to hash back over those things because we've learned a lot since then. And one of the reasons why we stopped making videos was because we had really a whiplash experience with all of these attorneys who kept giving us varying degrees of you have absolutely no claims that you can make and you have all of these claims that you can make. You're just going to have to sue a bunch of people in the process. So we ended up having to really pump the brakes on what we were saying publicly because, we don't want to make any false allegations that we don't have the ability to back up, or that, maybe we thought it was true, but we didn't have enough information at the time. But now what we have the ability to do is to say that Fannie Mae had a mortgage inspection certificate the entire time, and they knew that it was a bad legal description, and that what they were essentially selling us is a dead asset. It was something that they knew was absolutely worthless at the time that they were selling it. So whenever we say that because we've done extensive research, we've gathered documents, we were finally able to get some documents that shows us exactly what it was that they knew at the time. So we're going to break that down into several different videos because it gets really hard to explain how in the world is it that you prove that Federal National Mortgage Association intentionally defrauded us. How do we know that it wasn't just an accident? How do we know that whenever we paid $175,000 and we wired that money to them, we didn't have a note, we didn't have a mortgage, we just had $175,000. We wanted to be debt free, we wanted to be mortgage free. And whenever we wired that money, that they knew that what they were giving us in exchange was worthless. That it was even worse because it was all in the entire property, both the real property that they tried to convey us with the life estate and the 10 raw acres in a floodplain, and the improvements were in my neighbor's trust, and it had been there since 2010. So to break all of that down, I think the first video that I had tried to kind of narrow it all down as quickly as possible, the speed of my speech increased, but it still was about 50 minutes long, and then I got it back down to about 30 minutes long, and then it's so incredibly overwhelming. Some of the things that we're going to be talking about is that we did actually retain counsel. We were able to actually about 4 years ago, we were able to retain Robert Skeeth, who actually worked for Riggs and Abney. Now, Riggs and Abney is the general counsel for the Oklahoma Housing and Finance Agency, which is kind of like a BFF, if you will, of Federal National Mortgage Association, Fannie Mae. So that would be like hiring your best friend, the best friend of your adversary, to be your attorney and represent your best rights, but they're buddies with with Fannie Mae. So at that point in time, we didn't know everything that we know now, and so we didn't know about the mortgage inspection certificate that Fannie Mae had on file. We didn't know that they knew that there was a bad legal description to begin with. All we knew is that there's something that had to be desperately wrong because there were too many facts that didn't make any sense. So the conflict of interest that Robert Skeeth's law firm had in trying to take our case, we didn't know anything about that at the time. We certainly didn't know how it applied to us or what it would mean. What it eventually meant is that he filed pleadings on our behalf that prevented us from being able to bring the evidence to the court that showed that Fannie Mae had actually defrauded us, that they knew there was a bad legal description, and that they disregarded HUD regulations. They disregarded their own Fannie Mae selling servicing guide in having a good and marketable title. They had a worthless property that they paid $530,299 for during the prior foreclosure, and yet they resold it to us for $175,000. So there's a lot of details in there, and there's a lot of information, but we didn't have the ability to bring additional information to the court because of the way that Riggs and Abney's associate Robert Skeeth had actually filed those pleadings. So he trapped us into pleadings that we were never going to win. You can't bring external evidence or parole evidence to the court to prove that something has gone wrong with a transaction or with a contract unless you allege fraud. And Mr. Skeeth did not do that. So as a licensed attorney and an attorney who from his own words had been doing this for more than 24 years, he knew that the pleadings that he had filed were designed to fail. So, and then in addition to that, we're still being sued by our neighbors for trespass, for reckless and wanton disregard for the carrier's rights because of that claim there. So the settlement agreement that he tried to get us and to shove it through so that we would go ahead and sign that so that we could release all of those entities that had committed fraud, all of those entities that had defrauded us, all of those entities that were responsible as a matter of law for the proper care of these mortgages and these notes and these property valuations. They were going to be released. As a matter of fact, our attorney, this is the part that absolutely shocked us, and this is the part that we said there's no way he's representing our best interest. He ends up telling us in one phone conversation, he says that it matters not if Fannie Mae asks us or they ask us to release Santa Claus. It matters not. What we don't have any claims against them. What does it matter? And the problem with that is that when you're talking about a very serious legal document, you're talking about a settlement agreement that involves people's constitutionally guaranteed rights. When you're talking about a settlement agreement that involves so many different entities and it's so incredibly complex, whenever your own attorney is willing to release a fictional character, then there's really nothing that Fannie Mae could shove in that settlement agreement to deprive us of our rights that he wouldn't allow to go through because, Santa. So Santa is on the naughty list, and we're going to have a video coming up about that conversation, about the number of entities in the JP Morgan Chase Bank Quality Control Department and the foreclosing attorneys, Bear Timberlake Colson and Cates, and the title company, the title insurance company, Buffalo Land doing business as Oklahoma REO, and American Eagle Title Insurance Company. So we're going to do some videos over that. But the problem is, and just stick with us, we've got some videos that are coming out, but the problem is it's probably my fault because I get so incredibly distracted with so much information because all of those details are so incredibly important to me that I get distracted. But there's so much of it that in order to put it all in one video, you would be here for weeks. There's so much information. It's not even funny. But we're going to start with the Santa Claus issue because I think so much of the time we get this mode of just accepting that someone who is a licensed attorney and who is your counsel, they must have your best interest at heart. And in fact, what we've seen is we have personally, the more that we started investigating this, the more that we started looking into what is actually our rights? What do we have the ability to claim? What could we do to protect ourselves? And what liabilities would we face if we did it this way or if we did it that way? And I think one of the problems that we run into is we get this idea that because they are in a class all their own as lawyers and that they are working with these complex organizations and these complex contractual obligations that entities owe to entities, that we get this idea that they are so much smarter than we are, and we get this idea that they are so much more holy than anybody else, and yet we all know that they're so incredibly jacked up, it's not even funny. So after finding out that our attorney was willing to release Santa Claus if it meant that we could get this settlement shoved through, we decided that probably wasn't going to be the best option for us, and that there had to be something wrong with that. You don't release a fictional character for no reason. So there really wasn't going to be anything that was going to show up in that contract that even if it mattered to us, that he would defend it, or that he would exclude it from the contract. He wanted that thing done so badly it wasn't even funny. So we're going to bring up some of those issues, and we're going to start with the whole Santa Claus issue because I know that sounds so incredibly strange, especially to hear, number one, that an attorney said it, but I've got the audio recording of it, so you can actually hear, the exasperation that poor old attorney felt when he's trying to explain that, it doesn't matter who we're releasing. We're waiving rights, we're releasing people, but hey, you're not entitled to it anyway, so just go ahead and do it. And that type of general acceptance that somehow my rights in my hands are less valuable and they are less important, that they should be less important to us than it is in the hands of major banking organizations and international corporations. That's quite disturbing. That should never be the case. And when you see, like I said, the corruption, once you start digging into asking the right questions and you're asking the right legal questions that apply to a certain set of circumstances, it really becomes eye-opening at how much the American people are losing their rights one mortgage at a time. What we have experienced is something that we can't keep to ourselves. We can't keep silent about this, because if this can happen to us, and Fannie Mae still has our money, so it's not like we are sitting with gobs of money and just telling you what you should do or what you should think. They still have our money. So the sacrifice that we've made to make sure that we are doing the right thing and that we are bringing this information to you so that you can protect your property rights and that you can protect your constitutionally guaranteed rights in general, the right to freely speak, the right to lobby Congress, the right to properly petition whatever branch of government that you need to in order to stop the fraud that's taking place in the housing and finance industry. That right there is so incredibly valuable. And if we don't speak up, then there's going to be a lot of people who are going to turn around and say, well, I didn't know that Fannie Mae was going to dump toxic assets into the local courts. I didn't know that they were going to dump toxic assets onto innocent people that have no idea what they concocted on the other side of these complex structured financial transactions. And that's one thing that we want to address. And I know that it's a lot of information, but we're gonna take these issues one at a time and really just trickle out that information so that you can really digest exactly what it means to have a claim of fraud or a claim of rescission, and what that means for a claim of trespass and a claim of a simple breach of contract, and the differences between how these things were at least pled in our case and what that actually meant for us. So stay tuned, and we look forward to really upholding justice and having that conversation. So we'll see you guys soon. Bye.